Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us online on our live stream. My name is Devin Bartolotta. We are running this is a new thing for us. This is what we're calling the evacuee desk. If you have evacuated New Orleans, if you're watching us from Houston or Atlanta or Shreveport or wherever you may be, there are probably a lot of questions that you have about what is going on here in New Orleans and what kind of things you might face when it is time for you to come back. I am joined here by Sam Winstrom. He is with our web department. It's your first time on TV.
It is. I guess technically streaming, but
technically streaming.
But
and you're going to help us out. You've been watching this. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing the last couple days.
I do. So I've been at the desk watching the news come from several parishes, several different sites, monitoring all of our reporters. We have dozens of reporters across the area. We've gotten a lot of help from our fellow stations and sister stations across the country to go out to every parish, every area, and
there's a lot to cover.
There's a lot to cover, and something I want to emphasize too is while they're out there, sometimes there isn't cell phone service, there isn't a signal to send things back.
Yeah, we've had a lot of comments. I was looking at it. I actually saw a lot of comments like on our Instagram. I've seen them on Twitter and stuff like that as well, with a lot of people who have said to us, you know, you keep showing us videos and photos from New Orleans, but what about St. Charles Parish? What about St. James Parish? And the reason, and even Terrebonne Parish and some of the Plaquemines, whatever, there's no cell phone service. There's no way to get images and immediate coverage out of those areas. So we're doing the best we can right now.
It's true, but we are getting, you know, they're physically bringing it back when they can.
Yeah.
We're getting information from those areas, and what we do know, we are here to share with you.
Yeah.
While questions come in, I see a few coming in already, but
Sure.
I wanted to mention a lot of people that have evacuated want to know how the roads are, if they can get back.
Yeah.
And we should emphasize, officials are saying that if you are somewhere that is comfortable, if you are somewhere that you can stay out of state, if you've evacuated to a family's house or somewhere that you can be for an extended period of time, you should stay there. There's not going to be cell phone service here. There's not going to be electricity. There's not water in a lot of places. If you're a place where you are safe and healthy, you should stay there. But there have been some major interstate closures. I'm looking at live maps to get the information now. Let's see.
I guess the biggest one, at least if you are in like the JP or Orleans Parish areas, is that I-10 westbound from basically, I don't know exactly where the closure begins, probably about around the causeway, maybe a little further west, to Baton Rouge is emergency vehicles only, so you cannot get out on 10.
But eastbound, we'll say, did reopen today from the Texas state line all the way to the Mississippi state line. So I-10 eastbound has reopened if you evacuated to Texas.
The causeway is open, 12 is open, and from my understanding, the twin span bridge is also open.
I-55 North is closed if you are trying to get back to the North Shore or anywhere above there. If you're in Mississippi trying to get back there, I-12 North, or I-55, I'm sorry, I-55 is closed. I-12 is open from Baton Rouge all the way to Slidell, but I-55 is closed, as well as US 51.
And as far as getting around, I mean, I've been driving around the city all day yesterday. I was in almost every part of the city yesterday. And getting from place to place is relatively easy. There are a lot of power lines you've got to avoid and trees on the road and things like that. But as Sam mentioned, if you are somewhere, if you do not have to be here, you should not be here. And especially in some of the parishes that are harder hit, like Terrebonne Parish, is begging people. They said, do not come back if you have evacuated, because there are not enough resources for you to be here. They are running into issues with first responders being stretched way too thin. The hospitals are non-operational in Terrebonne Parish, and the roads there are largely impassable as well. So
I was in St. John yesterday, and I can tell you, everybody is working to clear roads right now. There's construction equipment everywhere, bulldozers, everything they could to get power lines out of roads, to get debris out of their way. But especially if you're talking about going on back roads, there's a good chance that the water is way too high to get your car through.
And that all just takes time. So that'll be something that we'll, we're just going to have to wait for a lot of those roads. The main drags in a lot of areas are clear, especially because emergency vehicles have to be able to make their way around. But it's really not a good time for people to be out on the roads if they don't absolutely have to be.
True. One of the questions I'm seeing come in that we're getting from a couple people that unfortunately we're not going to have a great answer for right now is there are people that have evacuated that say they're running out of money right now.
And not just cash, but
yeah, physically,
money in the bank.
paying the hotel room for wherever they're staying. And unfortunately, we don't have a good answer for where to get immediate funding for something. But when I saw that question, I did want to bring up, if you have evacuated, save all of your receipts. When this money, when FEMA can help you, when FEMA can get cash to you, money back to you, they will want to see a record of what you paid. They will want to see your receipts. Make sure you save all of that information.
That's really a very smart tip. FEMA is now, they have now opened up the application for aid, and FEMA has been kind of playing referee with misinformation. They posted a whole article on their website because there has been so much misinformation out there. It's titled Louisiana Rumor Control. And the first thing is make sure that you're finding trusted sources of information and you are discouraging others from sharing unverified sources as well. But they're kind of talking about the rumors that are happening right now and the facts. And the rumor is that we can go through a couple of these if you want, just kind of some of the rumors that are going around the area. Rumor, FEMA is paying for hotels if you call this 800 number. And the fact is you still have to apply for FEMA assistance first. That is disasterassistance.gov. We know that many people have already applied, but as Sam said, you should definitely save your receipts. And just about every parish in our area is eligible for FEMA assistance at this point.
Exactly. Something else with misinformation, we've heard when it comes to a lot of questions about power outages, when we'll get power back, when we'll get water back. And uniquely to us, there is a graphic going around, a social media post going around that we put together from Hurricane Zeta about when power will be back.
And people are sharing that?
So it showed power being out until November, late October. And it, of course, has our watermark on it and our logo on it because it was good information last year.
Yeah.
But if you see that now,
start time stamping all of those, but.
Yeah, there's no estimate right now. They would need 4 to 5 days. They're surveying the entire area to figure out where exactly to go.
Here's a look at the outage map. They just pulled it up for us here. This is a look at the Entergy Outage Map, and it's the entire area with the. It looks like there might be some people with power. Is that the French Quarter?
No, so the French Quarter shows up green on the Entergy Outage Map because it's on a little bit of a different grid. It's out of power, but the power lines in the French Quarter are buried. So they get kind of a different signal for the outage map from that. But everything in New Orleans, as far as I know, everything in JP, everything in St. Charles, basically the entire South Shore is without power right now. And if you do have power, consider yourself extremely lucky. And will be likely for weeks, if not a whole month. From what we've heard from officials so far, the month timeline is very likely, and I think they're doing that to be realistic and conservative. It could be maybe you'll get power back in a couple weeks if you're very lucky. Maybe in a week or so if you're very lucky, but I would count on not having power for at least a month.
Well, there's now almost 800,000 people without power across the whole state. Of course, the majority of them in our area. But if you are someone who evacuated and haven't been paying attention to every single step of the way with this Entergy situation, it kind of sounds complicated from the outside, and what exactly is going on and what kind of elements are going to be required to bring this back. And I'm going to reference something that I actually saw Helena Moreno, Councilwoman Helena Moreno, put on Instagram earlier that I found very helpful, that there are really 3 components to what is happening here. There is the power plant generation, that's part 1 of the Entergy, the Entergy flow, I guess I should say. Part 2 is the transmission tower and lines, and part 3 is the distribution lines. And that's actually the wires that we see that bring it directly to your home. And there is damage at all 3 of those levels. So right now what we're seeing, we actually have, I've seen Entergy guys out there trying to get lines off of trees and off of roads and string those back up, but there is, it's going to be a long time before all 3 components of that puzzle for Entergy are back together. And as Sam mentioned, it could be a month or more. So another reason why, if you have evacuated and you have power and you're safe where you are, it is wise to stay.
Something else that came up recently, I see a lot of people asking about food, water in the area.
Yeah.
New Orleans recently put out a list and mentioned at the press conference that there are various food assistance areas around the city. If you can get into New Orleans, if you are a New Orleans resident, you're already here. There are a lot of places to go. We have it on the front page of our website, WWLTV.com. And here's a graphic showing the time frame, various areas around the city. They do plan on keeping this going. These are the locations for today, but they will still be going tomorrow, and I'm sure for several days, weeks, months maybe, depending on how power and water and situation goes.
Yeah, and a lot of these are run by different nonprofits. I saw that there was one group earlier today that they said, listen, we are cooking donations that were frozen when we got them, and they are thawing, and we need to cook what we can and start feeding the community, and that's what they're doing. Of course, it doesn't help you if you have evacuated, but if you're watching us from in town, there is food available to you.
And you were actually, last night you were reporting several locations around the city, different restaurants, different businesses that they had to clear out their freezers, they had to clear out their coolers. I remember I used to live near Mofo. I saw Mofo on there clearing out their cooler, giving those groceries to people who could take them. You know, if you don't have a refrigerator or an icebox at home too, it doesn't do as much good. But
yeah, and a lot of these places were only able to do that if they had a gas stove or a gas oven, because again, there's no power. We were at New York Pizza on Magazine Street, and they had a lantern, like a camping lantern, sitting on their service window in the pizza shop, and they were hand cutting cheese by lantern light and feeding people, and it was taking like an hour and a half to get pizzas to people, because you know you're only as fast as manual labor will allow.
As you can do it.
And what other kind of questions are we getting?
We're seeing a lot of questions specific to different areas outside of the state and help that may be available. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of information about what's going on in Atlanta for people who have evacuated, or what's going on in Houston for people who have evacuated.
But the good part of that, though, is if you're watching us, we appreciate that. But the local media in those communities know that you are there. Atlanta and Houston know that they have a lot of people. I was getting messages from a news station in Mississippi saying that they had a ton of evacuees from New Orleans. So there may be resources there if you kind of check out the local media's websites wherever you may have evacuated to, and you need something right away there.
I see a few people asking about damage on the West Bank and what the situation is on the West Bank. And I can actually talk to that.
You were there earlier.
I know, I live on the West Bank.
Yeah.
So I've been back. I went to my house to check out the damage and everything, and I went around my neighborhood. I checked out Jefferson Parish and Orleans Parish out there, and obviously, like everything else, there's no power out there, but the damage seems localized, is what I want to kind of emphasize. You know, I can't speak to your specific neighborhood, to your specific house, and I did see big trees in the road, big trees in houses. You know, it's not to say that there is no damage and that people haven't, you know, that's not going to be a long process for people to build back. But it did when I was in the West Bank of Orleans Parish and the West Bank of Jefferson Parish, near the Orleans Parish line. I didn't go all the way to the other side of the river or anything, but the damage seemed more localized, individual houses, and you know, all the best of those people. I hope that insurance will cover it. I hope that they can rebuild quickly and that everything is okay and that they had evacuated. But the damage does not seem widespread. It seems more localized. There's a lot of debris in the road. There's a lot of roofing shingles, which means there will be roof nails in there that can pop your tires. There are a lot of trees in the road. There are a lot of branches in the road. But there did not appear to be widespread flooding on the West Bank of Orleans Parish.
This was wind, not water,
exactly.
I think, for most of us, and that was good. But further to our west, water is an issue.
Yes, like I said, when I was in, I went to St. John the Baptist Parish yesterday, and water is a big issue out there. Highway 61 was open and dry, but you could see on either side of it, anywhere near the river, anywhere near the lake, had taken on a lot of water.
Yeah, and again, those are some of the areas that we're struggling to get updates, at least immediate updates out of. Earlier, we had a press conference with the governor, and we could only hear him. We couldn't even get the video signal out from where he was. So, you know, that tells you we're doing all we can out there, but we understand that there's some pretty I don't want catastrophic is maybe, I don't want to dramatize it, but it's catastrophic for a lot of people who own homes out there.
And if you evacuated, I think you know and understand that. You know how bad it can be. You know how bad it can get. And that's not to say people who didn't evacuate didn't know. You know, everybody has a different reason for evacuating or not evacuating. You know, every story is different. Every person's life is different. But for some of us, we'll be able to go home, maybe with minor repairs, maybe with nothing even. But for a lot of areas, especially near where Ida made landfall, it's going to be a long recovery process.
And there's also, I know that we're doing this to answer questions, but there's sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I know that we're doing this to answer questions, but there really aren't a lot of hard answers yet in a lot of those hardest hit areas where they are still trying to see if the water has receded or waiting for the water to recede and to really assess everything. And there's some unknowns here too, as you mentioned, with not knowing when power will be back. So.
And like we mentioned earlier, we do have reporters on the ground in St. John, in St. Charles, in areas that in Grand Isle, as close as we can get to Grand Isle anyway right now. But the issue being, how close can they get if they can't get through the roads there, how far they can go, and how they can get that information back. Because in a lot of those areas, there is no cell phone service right now. There is no way for them to report back information until they can physically get back to the newsroom.
Well, and another thing too, this is about covering the story, not becoming the story. And by putting our crews in some of those areas, we do not want to stretch first responders' resources any more than we absolutely, than they already are. So we're trying to stay out of the way, stay safe, and cover what we can from a safe distance.
Let's see, I'm going through, again, if you have questions, we are looking through the comments on our Facebook feed right now, as well as taking them via text. The number is 504-529-4444, 504-529-4444. We're going through them right now. If we haven't gotten to your question yet, we are, we're taking them as they come and doing our best to get to them and answer them. Yeah,
and I'm also checking Twitter as well, so if you want to tweet, you can tweet.
Also, another, texting the same number, 504-529-4444, we've set up a program for parish-by-parish updates as well. If you text HOME to that number, you'll get a list of all the parishes in our area, and you can get updates for your specific parish. They'll list them out by various numbers, and it'll give you all the details when you text that number.
There are a number of really helpful articles that you guys, and lists, I should say, on our website that you guys are updating constantly. Can you give me a list of the lists? What all are, there's evacuations, there are closures, things like that you guys are keeping up to date?
Yeah, let me check out what we've got here so far. We have a lot of things for current weather and heat right now, especially without air conditioning and power in the area. Heat advisories are in effect as far as keeping people safe. So we have weather updates on there. We have, like I said, things listed by parish. So whether you're looking for updates on St. Charles Parish, on St. James Parish, on St. Tammany Parish in the North Shore, Tangipahoa, we have those updates listed specifically by parish in bullet point form.
And they vary so much. It's really hard to give a blanket answer or on everything, and because it really is so so different. So
we
that's
have
amazing.
Another thing, we have guides to different food and water in the area that's being given out. As we get that information, we will put it up on our website as fast as we can. It'll be up there.
Yeah.
We are staffed 24/7. We're going to keep that going. Power outages in the area, I would not expect the power outages in the area to change anytime soon.
Well, it does sound like that they're going to start incrementally putting people back on. And in Slidell, there is power for some people.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, actually, can we go back? Can we go to the CLECO map? I don't know if you guys back in the control room can pick that up. Let me see. I can't get it going here.
But we did see, I know last night, we started seeing power come back onto some areas, some parts of Slidell, I think they mentioned.
Yes, yeah. So I'm on that map right now. It looks, it doesn't look good. That's 92,000 customers in St. Tammany Parish without power. And in Tangipahoa, It's, well, I think that Entergy services most of
Yeah, there are
Tangipahoa.
multiple utility companies servicing the area.
Yeah. So focusing mostly on St. Tammany Parish, you've got 92,000 people without power there. And it does look like there are parts of Slidell that do have it. There are some outages in the Pearl River area, things like that. I mean, if your power's off, you know it. But they're working to get that back online.
Let me pull up, I'm going to pull up the, check out the 511 map of the different roads in the parish. I see we're getting a lot of questions about which roads are open back into the state.
The answer is stay out.
Yeah, if you can,
Yeah.
stay out, because there is a lot of uncertainty on the roads. And like we said earlier, there's not going to be power, there's not going to be water.
And once you're in, it is difficult to leave.
Exactly.
Because 10 westbound is closed for private vehicles. From up to Baton Rouge, you cannot use 10 for, I think, when does it begin? Around the Kenner area?
Let me see, 10 westbound.
I'm looking at it too.
Closed
here.
between Gramercy and Prairieville right now. Let me see if I can pull up a map of it.
But then west of there, you cannot get to Baton Rouge. So
No.
once you're in, it is difficult to leave. Remember that if you do get here, if you do decide to come back, gas is incredibly difficult to come by. There are very few gas stations open.
Every gas station that is open has lines that last hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
The ones I did see yesterday when I was driving around the state, and even locally, there's a gas station right across from the station that's open, and the line is, I don't even
Like
know
a
where it
half
ends.
mile long.
People's cars are running out of gas while they wait in line,
Yeah,
and they're
there's-
pushing them, foot by foot until they can get in there.
Yeah, and there's also been some reports of, people cutting in line. I think that the police had to be called to that location as well because people were getting into arguments, and it's much easier to stay where you are. But I understand everybody's reasoning is different, but know
And
that when
people,
you get here, it's not going to be comfortable.
Yeah, people need gas. People with
Yeah.
generators that
Yes.
that might be the only power they have for months need gas to run them.
Yeah. So road closures are definitely an issue, but we will say the Causeway is open, 10 to Slidell is open, 55 is open, 12 is open, but once you get further west of New Orleans into some of the areas like the river parishes and the bayou parishes, it is incredibly difficult to get around. And we got a report. Sam, tell me if you saw this email that we got. I think it was a press release. Oh, no. I saw this earlier today. This was from Terrebonne Parish. Let me pull this up. They said that they had an officer get into an awful car accident today. So this is from Terrebonne Parish. First line of the press release, if this tells you what, if this really sums it up. Evacuees, in all caps, do not come back to Terrebonne Parish if you are evacuated. Nothing is open. Debris is everywhere. Curfew still in effect. An officer was involved in a bad car accident while responding to a call of looting. That officer was dug out of his patrol unit and taken to a hospital in New Orleans. There are no hospitals operating in Terrebonne Parish, and I know that some other places as well. There's been evacuations. You said that there were some in was it St. John Parish?
Yeah, there's some. A lot of the hospitals are running on backup power right now, and they are running. We get daily updates from Ochsner specifically, but a lot of the hospitals are built for stuff like this, but they are very much in emergency mode.
Yeah.
And if you've got debris in your yard, if you can avoid clearing it out right now, I know I want to get out there with a chainsaw and take down the trees that are already down in my yard and clear everything up. But if you can avoid that for now and avoid any possible injuries that might come from that, it would be a huge help to the healthcare workers in hospitals.
That were already busy before this happened.
Exactly. They're already very busy, overwhelmed, and I'm sure they're getting plenty of injuries and people in from this as well.
People, though, are asking, I've seen at least, if we're telling them right now, don't come back, the answer is when. When can you circle a date on the calendar when it will be safe for you to come back? Can you plan out the next couple days? And we just don't know.
A lot of the places that are closed, especially schools might be a good indicator of this. As far as we know, every school system down here is closed for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
I know some of the universities have evacuated specifically, they said, until October.
Yes. Tulane took all of their students on buses today. right to Houston. So, I think some other university, I mean, most of the university campuses, as you said, closed till
Yeah,
October.
I mean, they're not going to, I'm sure many of them do not have water. None of them have electricity right now, unless, I'm sure in certain areas with a generator in certain buildings, but not enough to have classes and welcome people back.
Exactly, yeah.
And that might be a good mark for when to come back, is when will schools reopen again, and it's not going to be for a while.
Yeah, and even if this was to go virtual, nobody's got any power, nobody's got any internet. It's difficult.
Yeah.
So.
I highly doubt they'll go to virtual learning.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way. They are. I do know, as far as resources in some of the river parishes and the bayou parishes, if you have family there and you are somehow able to get in touch with them, they're working on getting food, tarps, ice, and other supplies. But I'm still, again, looking at this press release from Terrebonne Parish, that this is a direct quote from them: communication and cell services are basically non-existent in Terrebonne Parish. It's creating big problems for emergency leaders. They cannot talk to each other. Mobile data towers are being brought in to help, but as of now, they are not in place, and it will take time. So don't count on, it's been difficult for people to get a hold of family down here, and that's why there's just no way.
I see more people asking about different roads. So I want to reiterate, because I know people are coming in now, coming in when they can.
Sure.
I-12 is open from Baton Rouge to Slidell, but I'm not sure of the condition anywhere beyond that stretch. A lot of people are asking about I-10 all the way to Texas. I-10 eastbound is open from the Texas state line all the way to Mississippi, but westbound has stretches that are completely closed, and you won't be able to go back. I see a few people in here asking, they're healthcare workers that are being called back to the hospital to work shifts and stuff like that. But again, like we've been saying, if you do not have to come back, if you can stay where you are, please do. Another reason for that, like we've seen in here, is that emergency responders and officials are using these roads. If traffic backs up, we won't be able to get ambulances through. We won't be able to get, boats through. We won't be able to get power line crews through. Cherry pickers and whatnot.
I'm seeing a lot of comments on our live feed, and I understand this. People need to come back because they're low on cash. You can't pay for a hotel for 10 days, 15 days, 30 days. We get it. It's the same reason a lot of people didn't leave.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't afford to do it. And we understand it's difficult, and I think our leaders know that people are going to have to come back, but we're kind of all in the same boat here.